Hello there, my name is Linda Jo Martin, the Book Lady, and this is another video for my bookish and Booktube friends. For those of you who don't know, Booktube is a community of book-loving people on YouTube, and there's quite a few, I would say thousands. So yes, books are awesome, and so we celebrate them by making videos on YouTube. So today I'm doing the TBR, my books that I'm planning to read in the month of May 2019. And the first book, well, let me tell you first before I get into the books, I will tell you I'm doing two different challenges right now. I'm doing the PopSugar Reading Challenge for 2019. So I have been reading a lot of books. I'm almost halfway through with that now. There's like 50 books in the list that I chose to fit the prompts from the PopSugar website. And I have finished 23 of them. So I wasn't going to do any readathons, Booktube readathons this year because I really wanted to finish the PopSugar Reading Challenge. But since I'm so far ahead on reading books for that other challenge, I decided to go ahead and do a readathon, and it just happened to be a readathon that I didn't want to say no to. It is the Asian Readathon, and there are 5 books to read for the Asian Readathon, and the first book, I should say, the Asian Readathon is going to be done during the month of May, so I can't do it at any other time. It has to be now. The first book is to read a book, any book that was written by an Asian. And so I'm going to be reading Crazy Rich Asians, which I went ahead and I bought the whole set because I read that it was humorous, and I need a humorous book once in a while. So I'm going to be reading the first book in the series, Crazy Rich Asians, and I'll leave the other 2 books for some other month. I hope I like them. Anyhow, that's the first book I'm going to read for the Asian Readathon, and it also fits for the PopSugar Reading Challenge. It fits prompt number 34, which is a book that includes a wedding. Each book in the Asian Readathon is supposed to be from a different culture in Asia. So the first book, Crazy Rich Asians, that's from Singapore, and the next one is from Vietnam, and it is a graphic novel. And so I'm taking the easy way out by reading a graphic novel that is on the web. It's called The Boat, and I will put the link to that in the footnotes or description of this video. Anyone can go read it. It's absolutely free, and I've already read the first chapter, so I know already it's going to be very interesting. It's about people on a boat. Yep. So the next one for the Asian Readathon is an intersectional book, and that means that they want you to read a book about somebody who is Asian plus something else, or written by someone who is Asian plus something else. And so I chose to read somebody who is Asian and vegetarian, and so I actually already read this. It was a very short novel, 200 pages, less than 200 pages, and it was in 3 parts, and it was not my favorite novel ever. In fact, I've already reviewed it over at Goodreads, so if you want to find out more about it, you're certainly welcome to go over there and read my review. I gave it only 2 stars, even though it has won the Man Booker Prize, the International Prize, in 2016, so a lot of people liked it, but I was not one of them that completely loved it. And so, sorry about that, but the main problem that I had with it was that, in my opinion, there was too much sexual content, and I didn't want to read that stuff, and I'm sorry I did, but there it was right in the middle of the book that I had on my list. So that's life, it happens. So the next book for the Asian Readathon is Fourth prompt, a book translated from the author's native language. And I will be reading Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I'm really excited about having this book in my hand finally. And this is also for PopSugar Reading Challenge prompt number 17, a book set on a college or a university campus. So it's about young people falling in love. And then the next book, the fifth and final prompt for the Asian Readathon was to read a group book. Everybody's going to read the same book, and this is the book that they chose. It's called 1,000 Beginnings and Endings. It's edited by Ellen O. and Elsie Chapman. So I've already read the first 2 stories in this book. It's got 15 short stories, and each of them is based on some kind of Asian legend or myth, and they're all from different countries. There's some where there's like 2 stories from one country. I noticed there was 2 from China and 2 from Vietnam, but for the most part it's from different cultures in Asia. Very interesting, and I'm kind of glad that I'm going to be reading that. So let's see, the next thing. Okay, I'm going to go into my normal reading list now. And for those who don't know, I have a goal this year to read one of each of the types of books that I'm interested in reading. The first one is a recent fiction, some kind of fiction that has been recently written, and then the second one is classic fiction, and the third book that I want to read is nonfiction, and the fourth is YA, some kind of YA or middle grade fiction novel, and after that I also want to read an art book and I want to read a Christian book. So the recent fiction that I'm going to be reading this month is called No Exit, and it's by Taylor Adams. And the reason I want to read this book is because it takes place all in one day, and that is the PopSugar Reading Challenge prompt number 24, a book that takes place in a single day. And there's really not very many, so I latched onto this one. And I do have a copy. I think I got the Audible copy on that one. Yeah. So the classic fiction, I have a paperback. It is 100 Years of Solitude, and I'm really excited to read this. It's by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I hear that he was an original master of magical realism, so I cannot hardly wait to get into this book because I really like magical realism, and I hope that some of that is in this book, and I won't know unless I read it. So the next book on my list is the nonfiction, and I'm really excited to have this book too. It was on my list last year as well, but I didn't get to it. This year I have the Kindle copy. I'm reading it right now. In fact, I've read the first few chapters, and it is Miles from Nowhere by Barbara Savage. She and her husband took a round-the-world bicycle trip, and she wrote about it, and this is her memoir of that bicycle touring adventure that they took. So excited to be reading that. I do love bicycle touring. I have never done it, but I have read other memoirs about it, and I get excited about stuff like this. If you look into my archive way back in 2014, you can see I was riding a bicycle back then, and when I take off in my van, whenever that happens in the next few months, I will have my bicycle with me. So that's going to be part of my life. And so the YA book that I'm going to be reading this month is Scarlet. Last month I read Cinder, which is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles, and Scarlet is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles. And that's as far as I really intend to go with it this year. There's a few other books, but I don't have them on my list for this year anyhow. The next book after that is my art book, and it is going to be watercolors. This is vibrant watercolors, and I'm really looking forward to hearing something about her watercolor, or reading something about her watercolor techniques. It should be very interesting to try out some of the things. I really want to be better at watercoloring, so here's my chance. And then the Christian book that I have chosen for this month, I don't know if I'll get all the way through it because I'm not doing too well with my Christian books, to be honest. Like this one, I've been reading since February, and I read a little bit on it every month. And I was thinking, because I'm having such a hard time getting through this, now I want to say this, it's not the whole thing. There's also a workbook that I'm using, and it also requires the reading of the Gospel of Mark at the same time. So all of that kind of slows me down, but I would like to just set aside an entire day to see how far I can get through this book and toward the end if I do nothing else but read this book. So I might do that this month. And then I'm also reading Rooted still. This is a 10-week course and really enjoying that one. So the book that I chose for this month is kind of an unusual one. It is Pigs in the Parlor by Frank Hammond and Ida Mae Hammond, and this is a practical guide to deliverance. So I'm really interested, shall we say, curious to learn more about deliverance ministry. And this talks about how demons enter people, if deliverance is needed, how it is accomplished, how to retain deliverance, and a lot of other things that might come in handy in the future. You never know. So that's it. That's the end of my TBR list for the month. And I'll get back to you in another video and let you know how it's going. Talk to you later. Bye.